So, hey guys, are you frustrated with where you're at right now? Maybe stunted in your progress? Well, if you are, I want to recommend a place for you to go called Growth Day. growthday.com/ed. It is the #1 personal development app on the planet. It's got all kinds of high performance techniques in there, courses, accountability, journaling, live speeches from some of the top influencers in the world, including me. It's an overall environment to change your life. growthday.com/ed. I'm just curious. I think when people hear that, they think, hey, you say in the book, anybody can transform their life, but does that really apply to me? Can anyone actually change their world? And I'd like you to
Yeah, it
speak
really
to that to
does.
begin.
And I love the question. And I think that here's where the miss is. I think that most of the time when we're talking about positive change, we leave it to others because we really don't think that we're probably capable of doing it. And in fact, I call the book "Change Your World," not "Change the World." Change the world's too big. It's overwhelming. So I'm just asking people to go into their world. I mean, your family, your friends, maybe a few people that you work with, but I'm asking them to go into that world and become a positive influence, positive force with the people around them. And what really excites me about the book and our time together today is that the book has no theory in it. It's all proven work. I'm not throwing out a book and saying I think maybe if we did this that we could change our world. And I'm not hyping people or pie in the sky stuff. We're not going to Disneyland today. It's just stuff that it works, and I know it works because I've been able to see it firsthand. I've been able to lead it, and to be able to put a book like this in the hands of any person and have them not have a false promise, but have a true promise that they can really make a difference with someone else is just an incredible feeling. So I can say, I've written 86 books, so that's a few. And by the way, that's no, hey, Ed, when you think about it, that's no big deal. I mean, you've got to be
Sure,
old.
it's not.
You've got to be old. If you're not old, you can't write 86 books. So I tell people, relax, take a pill. It's not that big of a deal. You just have to be old to do 86 books. But of the 86 books that I've done, this one is the most fulfilling.
Yeah,
it's a timely book. It's very timely, but I'm very excited because what do leaders do, Ed? Leaders offer hope in the darkest hour.
Yeah.
And honestly, when crisis comes, you separate the players from the pretenders real quick. And so we're in a crisis, and I'm giving an opportunity for all of us to be players. And
I noticed, John, I noticed that, by the way, on the book. I was going to ask you that. It didn't say change the world. It said change your world. That was one of the things I actually wanted to ask you about. And so you kind of started out there. And like most of John's books, guys, it goes right into the granular, like, here's what you do. And on that hope topic, you have this great term in there called a possibilist. You need to become a possibilist. What is that? Explain.
Oh, don't you love that word? Huh?
I love it. I love it.
It took me about a month to learn how to say it. So let's start there.
I got it out of the way early in the interview. I'm like, I'm going to say this correctly early.
Yeah, I could write it before I could say it, but I love it because what this possibilist is a person who doesn't deny reality. I mean, they don't have their head in the sand. They don't say, they're not just an optimist and everything's good and everything's going to come out okay without any kind of substantial support to their statement. A possibilist sees reality, sees the downside, but also sees the possibility. And by the way, I think that's what a leader is. I think a leader sees reality. And in fact, Max Dupree says the first responsibility of a leader, Ed, is to define reality. So we don't do our people a favor when we leave reality. And in fact, I think reality is the foundation of building a dream. I watch people try to build a dream without reality, and I want to walk into their life and say it's not going to happen. You've got to. The foundation of reality is what is solid. Now you can build something off of it. And a possibilist is a person who says this is a very difficult time, and this is not going to be easy, and it's not going to be quick, and it's not going to be even sometimes simple. But it can happen, and I'm not only believe it can happen, but I'm going to make it happen. And in other words, a possibilist gets involved. It's awful easy to be an optimist on the sideline, but when you've got to go in the game, all of a sudden that optimism isn't going to show anything in your game. You got to be able to provide the resources and support to make the game a winner for you. So I love the word because it says we're not going to deny reality, but we're also going to not deny possibility.
Yeah.
And you know, some people, they go to reality and lose possibility, and then some people go to possibility and lose reality.
Very
a possibilist says, I take both of them with me. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. I've not heard it said that way, because I talk a lot about operating out of your imagination and not your memory or your history. I think a lot of people just keep operating out of their memory and their history. They don't give themselves the gift of being what I call a possibility thinker. And I love possibilist. It's so beautiful, because now what you've added to that, though, that is really valid, is you also have to define reality. I think a lot of times these, you know, you got to dream big, you got to have possibilities, but defining where you are is the place you're going to begin. And what I love about the book, actually for me, I'm trying to, in my life, I have different businesses. And so as I was reading the book, I'm like, this really applies to turning around this one particular part of my life and my business. And I was fascinated because John lays foundations, guys. It's steps in this book. And I thought it was interesting that really you start sort of with values, and that's sort of the foundation of transformation. I think this is valuable because if you've been hurt through what's going on in the economy right now and in the world, and you're like, where the heck do I begin to turn my world around? John recommends you start with getting clear again on your values. So talk about that a little bit, John, because it's beautiful. And I not read that anywhere else.
Well, Ed, thanks for bringing that up. And, if it's okay, I would like to give all of your people a behind the scenes. It's not in the book at all, okay. but I'd like to give context. I'd like to pull back the curtain for a moment.
Yeah.
Because I got to go clear back to 2002. And if you go back there, I mean, if you picked up the Time magazine in 2002, they summarized that year as the year of distrust. Because all I got to do is say Enron, okay? Yeah. That was the year when corporate scandals were rampant, and what we said we were and what we were was not the same thing, and employees got hurt and clients got hurt and corporations just went belly up and all kind of bad things happened. I was writing at that time for Time Warner, and Larry Kirschbaum, who was the CEO of the book division of Time Warner, called me up to New York City. We had a long dinner, and he said, John, I want you to write a book on business ethics for us. We just really need this voice in America right now. And I told him, I said, I can't. And he said, why can't you? I said, because there's no such thing as business ethics. And he looks at me and he said, what do you mean? Look what's happening in the business world. I said, I know, I understand that, but there's still no such thing as business ethics. Wow. I said, there's just ethics. Just ethics. It's not business ethics. It's not home ethics. It's not community ethics. It's not relationship. It's ethics. Mm-hmm. And either you have them or you don't. Mm-hmm. And by the way, if you have them, they work in business. Oh, happy day. Okay, yeah. We're cooking. You with me? Yeah. Yeah. So he gets it real quick, and he said, "Oh, I got it." He said, "Well, can you write a book on ethics?" And I said, "I'm not sure." He said, "Okay, you're holding back on me again. What are you doing?" And I said, "How do you write a book? I mean, ethics is all about doing the right thing for the right reason, regardless of the situation." I said, how can you write a book on ethics when there's no truth or absolutes? I mean, in a world of relativism, how do you get anything substantial? And I said, you're going to have to give me a little time to see if I can write the book on it. And so I went with my research writing team. We talked about it a lot, and we finally came up with an answer. So I wrote the book on ethics, and the answer was very simple. We wrote the book based on the golden rule. Yeah. Treat other people as you'd like to be treated yourself. Beautiful. And our research team found out that every religion in the world and every culture in the world has the golden rule. So it's not like I'm telling them something they don't already know or probably haven't even embraced. So we wrote that book, and it was a game changer. I mean, I was interviewed by the Chicago Tribune, Wall Street Journal. I went to West Point. I mean, I went to places, and they said, talk to us about, and all of a sudden the light turned on in my life. And I realized back in 2002 that the golden rule was just nothing more than a good value. This is a good value. Treat others as you want to be treated. It's a good value. All of a sudden I thought good values can make us become good people if we learn them and if we live them. And so I began to, although I trained leadership skills, and everybody knows that, I develop leaders, I got that part. I said, I want to do more than help people with leadership skills. I want to help people not only be trained leaders, I want to help them be transformational leaders.
Very good.
And transformation is an inside job. It's a values issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing. Okay, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
I'm known for the statement, everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yep.
Well, that's the good and the ugly, the good and the bad of leadership. Rises or falls. You got a bad leader, it falls. Good leader, falls. Now, what makes leadership rise, Ed? Two things: competence. In other words, you have to be a good leader, and good values, and you can't divorce them. You're not going to rise if you have great skills but you have terrible values.
Yeah.
And if you have great values but you have terrible skills, you can't lead anybody. I mean, the good news is they're a friend, but they aren't going to take you anywhere. And so the falls on leadership is when you have bad values and you have bad leadership skills. And so all of a sudden I realized that here we've been training people to lead in leadership skills, and we train them on what to do, and they know how to do the right thing, but we haven't trained them to be right. Wow. We haven't trained them to be the right person.
I felt like, John, I didn't mean to jump in, but I felt like it's one of the revolutionary parts of the book is the part on transformation tables, is that you make change in groups. And it made me think a couple of things, guys, on values. As I read the book and I did the values assessment myself, I think one of the reasons for all of you that are trying to make change, I think if you want it to be long-term, start different this time. Start with your values. That's the foundation that'll be everlasting. I mean, your values will evolve, obviously, over time. But the other thing that happens when you take inventory of your values, I think, and it helped me, is I've been talking a lot lately about you've got to believe you're worthy of success. You got to give yourself more credit for your intentions. Not enough. I think everyone predicates, I could be successful, as you said, when I'm completely ready, or when I've got all the answers, or I've got this amazing ability to execute. Well, how about you deserve the win because you're a good human, because you intend to make a difference? There's a lot to be said in this world right now for just somebody with great intentions, and not enough good people give themselves credit for having good intentions, delivering on their self-confidence, because they don't take an inventory of it. And then when you set up these transformation tables he talks about, you'll discuss them, but I think it begins to grow within you. And so I just think there's so many granular things like that in the book. You also talk in the book, John, you don't have to list them all if you don't want to, but I just think his stuff is so real. There's like eight streams of influence that you talk about and why they're necessary for transformation. If you want to go through all 8, you're welcome to, but if you could at least make some reference to it, I just feel like it'd be so valuable for someone watching this right now or taking notes, or maybe they're about to pull over to the side of the road so they can write these down.
The reason I love to be on your show is you know how to bring the best out of the person you interview. You're a master at it. You really are, Ed. You're a pro. And I'll go to the 8 streams, but when you talked about people with good intentions, that all of a sudden we give them courage. We let people that have had good intentions and a good heart out of the closet.
Yeah.
We let them. We say, you can get out the closet. You don't have to stay there anymore. And we're going to give you a simple game plan and you don't have to start big. Do you have 5 friends? Do you have 4 friends? Do you have 3 friends that you'd be willing to get together with and just work through these values? And I just love what you said, because I thought to myself, wow, I wish I would have written it as good as you said it, as far as we just really help people who really would like to make a difference, but have never had the courage or the confidence.
Yeah.
The thing, it's always kind of been somebody else is going to have to make a difference. I'm just going to hope and pray for it.
Right.
And all of a sudden, no, you can walk out of the closet now and you can start doing it.
It's beautiful.
And so that transformation, that magic happens there. We may come back to the table a little bit, because interaction, hearing other people discuss their difficulties and issues just really helps bring everybody out.
Let's stay there for a second, John. I think it's too valuable. So it reminded me almost like if you go to church, there's, you go to church every Sunday, but then sometimes there's like a small group where you sit around in fellowship and you'll share a scripture and discuss it, and then it grows and you come back. I think it's, you're right. Let's just finish that for a second. What is a transformation table specifically, and how do I begin to build one?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, it's a small group of people. 6, 8. You could get up to 10, but don't, keep it small. Keep it small. And it's a place where everybody roots for everybody. There's no judgment there. We don't need any teachers there. We don't even call them, they're facilitators. There's one person that may say, okay, you share next, but we're in this together, and all we're wanting to do is improve each other. And so it's one for all for one. You can call us the 6 musketeers around the transformation table, or whatever you want to call it. But here's what's beautiful. Here's why the table works, Ed. Okay. There are 3 questions that people ask that if they can get those answered, it brings life change to them. And they always ask it about somebody that's leading them, okay? And these are the 3. When I spoke at the United Nations a few years ago, when I did the opening session at the United Nations to all the ambassadors of the world, I spent 2 hours on these 3 questions. But these are the 3. Every follower asks a leader basically these 3 questions. Now, they don't ask them personally, but intuitively, they're following for a reason. And the reason is they're looking at that person, whoever it is that's leading, and they're asking the questions. First of all, do you care for me? Yeah. Secondly, can you help me? And thirdly, can I trust you? Those are the 3 questions. In the table, here's what makes the transformation table magic. Those 3 questions are answered every time you meet. This is life change. And when I'm teaching, those 3 questions can be asked, but I can't answer them to a crowd. Yeah. When I'm reading it, when I'm writing a book, they can pick up the book and they can be reading it. But those 3 questions can't be answered at long distance on a page. Yeah. You can put people around the table, Ed, and all of a sudden, the trust factor begins to increase. Because people begin to be vulnerable. But trust is built out of vulnerability. It's not built out of covering, and authenticity is essential. And all of a sudden, you've got people helping each other, and you don't have professionals helping each other. You have friends helping each other. Yeah. And let me tell you something. The difference between a professional help is they'll tell you what you need to know. A friend help will say, "I'll walk with you."
Wow, that's great.
Oh, that was so good. I'm so glad I got Aaron in this room to get this content for me. I got my content curator in here, and it just becomes absolutely life-changing.
Fire.
And I want you to know it's like social trust. Social trust. Every country that does well, every community does well, Ed, has social trust. And any country that doesn't do well lacks it. And social trust is I trust you. I trust you to do what you ought to do most of the time. Wow. And when there's distrust, I don't trust you to do what you ought to do most of the time. And if you can see, we've got a trust fall in America right now, a major trust fall.
No question.
And somebody needs to speak about this issue. Now watch, this is huge. We have got a trust fall, and we're looking at each other and we're saying, oh my gosh, and it's we're divided, it's you and against me, and we got our issues and the whole and we've totally lost our way. Around the table, that all disappears. You've got people that are friends, and they're saying, "Well, let me tell you what happened with me in that area," and you've got support. I mean, it's like AA meetings. I mean, there's a reason that they've worked for decades. There's a reason. There's a community at a table that you can get nowhere else. And so what we've watched is, as we've now put Ed, 2.5 million people through these tables. So we I mean, it's not like we tried a table last week and we wrote a book about it.
Right, we think it might work, yeah.
And we have story after story of life change, and the life change comes when people just are sitting around that table and they're finding out, yes, you care for me, yes, you are helping me, and oh yes, I do trust you. And now there is a safe place for people to have change, because change is not easy. You referred to that earlier, when people change when they heard enough they have to, they see enough that they're inspired to, they learn enough that change is not easy. But around the table, change is as easy as it's ever going to come.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing it by yourself. And that's it's so exciting to me.
It's huge. You said, by the way, what you established at that table is social trust in that community. And guys, listen, we're just getting in here. We've already talked about the fact, yes, you can make transformation. Yes, you need to be a possibilist. Yes, it starts with your values. The way you go out and do that is you go out and create one of these transformation tables. These are real applicable things you can do right now that can begin to create the transformation in your world. These are real things. John, I read the book, and there's a group of kind of, influencers, I guess you call them, that are friends of mine, that we've all sort of said, hey, let's get together one-on-one. And I actually took the transformational table concept. And next Friday, I'm doing that with a group of men and women that are in this group. And I said, I want to begin to build my own transformation table. I'm not the leader of it. I want it to be a community. And I said to them, actually, ironically, that I wanted to build social trust. And I've learned the 3 keys of leadership from John Maxwell. When you guys hear me talk about those 3 keys, now you know where I got them. So, I'm coachable to John on these things because I know, and by the way, when I think of John, I think of values. When I think of someone who sustained a career this long, that so many of us that are in this space look to as somebody that we admire, that's had sustaining impact and value like John has, it's because of these reasons. These are the reasons why I love John. So he's being humble, but he's lived many of these things for years and years and years, which is why he's who he is. So I interrupted you on the 8 streams of influence because the transformation table is so dadgum good. But I know that's one of the things after values that's necessary for transformation. So let's at least give them the gift of that wisdom as well.
Yeah, I will. And by the way, because you keep saying things that trigger me. It's your fault that we don't get to the 8 streams because it's your fault, Ed. Because let me just say something. I have fulfillment in accomplishing things that I can do, but I have much greater fulfillment, multiplied fulfillment, in helping other people accomplish things that they've never done before. And that's why Change Your World is so exciting to me, because I've got this down. I've done transformation tables. I'll keep doing transformation tables. Margaret and I took a cruise about 18 months ago, a Disney cruise, a great Disney cruise with our grandchildren. And every day we went through another value. We finished the Disney cruise. We go to 4 different countries. We got Mickey. We got Goofy. We got them all running around. We've got them in the parade. We've got them doing everything. I sit down, I say, okay, because I always do this at the end of a trip. I always ask my kids, my grandkids, what did you love? What did you learn?
Wow, so good.
Always, because experience isn't the best teacher. It's evaluated experience. Okay, all 5 of my grandchildren, what did you love? Goofy, Mickey Mouse, parade. Papa, we love sitting around the table with you and Mimi and learning values and discussing them. I mean, these little kids would get around. I'm talking about all my kids are teenagers. They would get around. I remember that. I'll never forget the moment when John, my number 3 grandchild, in one of the values, was very open and honest about a very difficult time he was going through. And the next thing I knew, his cousins and his sister and his brother were around him, and they had their arms around him, and they were loving on him, and they decided to pray for him.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Life-changing.
Life-changing.
Life-changing. It can only happen at the table.
Hey everyone, it's Ed Mylett, and if you know me, you know I'm always looking for ways to live healthier, have a little bit more energy, more vitality in my life. And so if you're like me in that way, I think I've got something exceptional for you, which is Armra Colostrum. This is just not any health trend. It's a breakthrough in natural wellness. Armra Colostrum is a superfood that's packed with over 400 bioactive nutrients. It's derived from sustainably sourced grass-fed cows right here in the USA. And since I started using Armra into my routine, I can tell you I've noticed some actual changes. One is my energy levels way up. My workouts feel stronger, and so is my recovery. Like, they're just more effective. And I got to tell you, there's even kind of a glow people are telling me to my skin. So we've worked a special offer for my audience. Receive 15% off your first order. Go to tryarmra.com/Mylett to get 15% off your first order. That's tryarmra.com/Mylett. Join me and thousands of others who are making a real difference in their health.
This quote by Thomas Edison said, "When you feel you've exhausted all options, remember this, you haven't."
I love that.
That's the power of one more.
Power of one more.
And so I have lived this book in my life. Like, I have lived this mindset, and it has changed my life because I've always been just one step away, one habit away, one mindset away from this amazing life that I'm grateful and blessed to live.
Well, that's the truth, right? You're right. And I think the great lie in life is that, some scriptures say, well, where there's no vision, the people will perish. whatever your scriptures are. Really, do you have no vision? If you ask the average person, you want to be happy or sad? What's your vision? They'd say, I want to be happy. You want to be rich or poor? Most people say, I'd like to be rich. Do you want to contribute or make no difference in the world? I want to contribute. Do you want beautiful memories or no memories? I want memories. So there's a vision. Our issue is depth perception. We think it's further away than it is. And because we think it's so far away, Jay, we create patterns and behaviors in our life that perpetually keep it there.
Ooh.
And that's what we do in our life. But what if that's the great lie of life? And what if the truth is that you're one relationship away, one meeting away, one conversation, one podcast, one interview, one new thought, one new emotion, one new tactic or strategy away from completely changing the trajectory of your life. And everyone that you and I know that we both work with, that we're blessed to work with in our lives, the truth is it was one decision, one meeting, one extra rep, one more phone call, one thing they did that changed their trajectory. And then the question then becomes, how do I do it? And so the strategies are in the book, but conceptually, that's 100% how you change your life.
Yeah, and you're so right. I was thinking about this morning. Last year, I had a double hernia surgery on the front. So I couldn't walk for about a month. And when I say I couldn't walk, I mean I literally couldn't move.
Oh my gosh.
It was I felt like I was teaching myself to walk again. That's how it felt. It's really interesting what you just said about how we perpetually push it far away. I would wake up every morning and my mind, or my initial mindset was it will be gone today.
Yeah.
It must have gone today. Today it will be fully healed. I'll be fine today. And I would wake up and I wouldn't be. And I would feel like healing was so far away.
Yes.
It would be 80% away that I was missing out on the 1% change since yesterday.
You got it.
Since yesterday, I made 1% change. I wasn't feeling the same pain in my nerves. I was able to be flexible by 1% more.
Yes.
And I was missing out on all of that because I was so obsessed with how far I was.
That's the journey. And and what happens is when you live with an expectation that these one mores exist, the reticular activating system in your mind filters them into your awareness. I call it the matrix in the second chapter of the book. When you wake up believing, hey, I'm one decision away, I'm one meeting away, one relationship away, that's not hokey. Your mind begins to filter the people, places, and things into your awareness. You develop something called sensory acuity. You hear conversations you weren't hearing. We've all had that experience where we're on an airplane. I can't stop hearing these people over here. Or you walk in a loud room, but you can hear your own name auditorily over all the other names in the room. That's because it's important to you and it matters. You see things. And so when something becomes important to you and you believe it to be true, the RAS goes to proving it for you. And where I learned this, ironically, I talk about it in the book, is my father was an alcoholic and had tried to get sober many, many times. And I'll never forget it, Jay. We were driving to a baseball game of mine. My dad started crying. I'd never seen my dad cry before. And he pulls the car over and he still isn't looking at me, but he's crying and he says, Eddie. And then he turns to me and he goes, I'm going to try to get sober. And I'll never forget this, brother. He goes, one more time.
Wow.
And I said, really, Daddy? He goes, I'm going to give it one more try. And I said to him, I said, why would this be any different this time? And he said, never said this to me before. He goes, because I love you and you deserve it, Father, you can be proud of, and you can't be proud of me right now. And I think every great thing we do in life is one away, but it's also born from love. To talk about your book, when you love people or you love something so deeply, if that love is greater than what the obstacles might be, now you got a shot to do it. Then my dad gets sober. He comes home from rehab. I say, Daddy, are you never going to drink again? And he said, I can't promise you that. I can promise you I'm not going to drink for one more day at a time.
Wow.
And he lasted the rest of his life stacking those one more days up. And so I know the power of one more. And Jay, the other thing, I also know humans can change. I watched my hero do it. I watched my dad live my first 15 years. Saw him in a lot of fights.
Wow.
A lot of lying, a lot of difficult times. And then I saw this man transform. And in life, we're most qualified to help the person we used to be. And what we think in life, and I hope everybody gets this, we think the things we're most ashamed of, embarrassed by, our divorce, our bankruptcy, or maybe we've just always been average and ordinary. This disqualifies me from being successful and happy. What if that's not true? What if the hardest things of your life are the very things that qualify you? I'll give you an example. You know, my dad got sober. Somebody helped him. My dad was going to take his life or lose his family. And I didn't know who it was till months ago. Some precious human being whom I didn't know. In my dad's darkest hour of his life, Jay said, I'll help you. I'll help you. Little did that person know I'd be his son. And I'd help millions of people. And I'd be on Jay Shetty show. And we both help millions of people. And the more ironic thing that this person helped my dad is what qualified them to help my dad. They were a drunk. They were an alcoholic. They at one time were a drug addict. They at one time were lying and stealing and living in the shadows. The very thing that person probably figured that disqualifies me from having a successful life was the one thing that did qualify them to help my dad. So if you're listening to this and you've had something you're ashamed of or a failure or a setback, you're most qualified to help the people you used to be. And that person, that alcoholism they suffered with their drug addiction helped my dad live those one more days forever.
That is the best explanation I've heard of how pain turns into purpose.
That's right.
The thing that brought you down, that broke you down, that made you feel like you were losing everything.
That's right.
Gave you back everything when you used that to serve the people that were struggling with it.
And then there's a purpose. And you know, if you can survive the temporary pain in your life, and all pain is temporary. I watched my father pass away last year. He was in tremendous pain. Even our bodies are temporary. Only our souls are permanent. If you can survive the temporary, on the other side of temporary pain, you meet another version of yourself, another insight about yourself. And that's why it's so important to grow as a person, because the more we grow and become a new person, we can help those that used to be like us. And that's why you and I are so addicted to growing and learning, and we're curious, because if you used to be a broken person and you no longer are quite as broken, you can help broken people. If you used to be broke financially and you no longer are, you can help people. Whatever you do for a living, at one time you didn't know about it, and now you do. You can help those who need to know about it. And so you're immensely qualified if you understand the power of doing one more.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Tell me about, so let's say, and you probably come up against this all the time. Sure. A lot of the people say, okay, I'm going to practice that. I'm with you, Ed. I love you and Jay. I'm listening, and I go, yes, I'm going to practice the power of one more. Now, what I find, and this is why you're so great at teaching this, because you're not teaching it as a gimmick, a glitch, or like a little affirmation. This is like real, it makes sense. Like it works. People get so tied to the result that when they try it the next day and the sales meeting doesn't go their way, or the pitch doesn't go their way, they go, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Why didn't it work? And how should we respond when we fail or get rejected the next day?
Well, it didn't work because you're so attached to the outcome. I coach a lot of athletes. I know you do as well. And one of the things that's a really nuanced thing in life, it's great to have goals. You should have goals. I want to do this or that. But in the moment of execution, you have to separate from outcome in the moment that you're executing and just be present and exist. I talk about this in the book. Here's what I would say. If you're going to win long term, 95% of people have an operating system in their mind where they operate out of history and memory.
I like that.
And about 5% of humans operate out of vision and imagination. So the reason we're so much happier, I believe, when we're children is we have no history and memory. So we operate out of imagination and dreams and vision. But at some age, some people it's 5 years old, some it's 8, some it's 18, some it's 28. They create a history, and that history then becomes the operating system. So even if they take on a new behavior or tactic, they're operating out of a pattern of thought and belief that's historic and memory-based. And so the number one thing I would say is begin to operate out of your imagination again, out of your vision again. Create from that place. If you create from that place, now you're not tied to the result in that moment. You're giving yourself space to imagine and create something new in your life.
That I've never heard that in that language, man. That is so powerful.
Thank you.
You're so right about as kids how we don't have any memory or history, so we don't have any blocks, we don't have any limits.
And begin to listen to the people around you. People say, hey, you're the product of who you hang around. How do I know if they serve me or not? Here's one way to just deduce this, because they could be beautiful people who care about you, and they might even support you. But when you're with them, what are you ever have those friends you're with them, you're like, you remember when, remember that party, remember that thing? Yeah. And if your friends are constantly bringing you to the filtration system of memory and history all the time, think this through. How often are those friends saying, hey, what are you working on now? Where are you going? What's your vision? What do you want to create? And maybe that sounds hokey, But you and I have some of both our friends have the most amazing histories, and you can't get them to talk about them.
No.
You have to work, because what are they still doing?
Yeah.
They're talking about now and where they're going.
Yeah.
Their viewpoint in their life is being present and having a vision for the future.
Yeah.
A formula for misery, a formula for lack of creativity, lack of productivity is constantly being history and memory.
Yeah.
Even if it's good, it doesn't serve us. And for most of us, it's not good. And we keep living from it or trying to move away from it. Create a new future. Don't move away from the past. Create a brilliant, imaginative, curious, vibrant vision for your life.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, we're always trying to create the same past.
Yes.
As opposed to a new future.
A new future.
And I find that what's really interesting about that, all the studies show that nostalgia makes us believe that the past was more phenomenal than it actually was. If you remember that party you went to at college, it's better in your memory than it actually was. If you actually could have gone back and remembered how you felt hungover and what you broke a bone or whatever happened, but now in your memory, it's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Right? So our memory also is slightly warped of the past.
No question.
It can make things feel much better or much worse sometimes.
No question.
But what's really coming out for me right now is this idea that it's something you said a couple of moments ago, and it sparked a thought for me. I remember the story that Vanessa Bryant told about Kobe Bryant after he passed away. I was fortunate enough to interview him around 3 months before his tragic passing. And she told this story, and she said that Kobe would play through every injury. He would play through every pain. He would play through everything, even when the doctors and his coaches would say, stop playing. And she asked him, she said once, why he still plays, right? Again, going back to our curiosity, not assuming you know your partner. She asked him, why do you still play? And this is just her and him. There's no cameras, she's telling this story, but at the time it was just them two. He said it's because there's someone who's paid for a ticket today. They saved up. And this is the only time they're ever going to be able to come. Maybe maybe a dad's brought his kid. Maybe someone's come to the game. They're a lifelong fan, and they came today. And today's the only day they're going to get to see me. And if I say I'm injured, they won't get to see me. So I'm going to play so that one person gets to see me play, and then he goes and wins.
Yes,
and it's like. That's love.
That's
right?
love.
That's what you were saying.
Love for something is in the present moment also, right? Wow. Love is not just for the past. And it's funny how important one day is, man. When my dad got sick, my dad got cancer. When he first got sick, he goes, hey, my dad was a dude. He goes, look, I'll fight this one time. Okay, I'll do your little chemo and your surgery, but I'm not going to pour poison into my body. I'm not going to lose my hair. I'm not going to deteriorate. I'll give this thing a shot once. If it doesn't work, I'm out. That led to 8 years of him fighting it.
Wow.
Chemo, radiation, proton therapy, surgery, chemo, experimental chemo. And he did lose his hair and he was in pain. And I'd say to my dad, Dad, you're suffering so much. You said you wouldn't suffer. He said, no, Eddie, I'm in pain, but I'm not suffering. I choose not to suffer. And I'm not suffering because I get to see my grandkids again. And I said, Dad, why are you doing this? And he said, you only understand the power of one day when you're threatened with never having another one. I'll do anything for one more day. Get to be with you one more time. Give your mom a kiss one more time. Maybe I'll see one of my granddaughters get married. And he goes, I'll do anything for one more day. The beautiful thing is I was actually with Kobe a week before he passed away. We were in the same gym. Our daughters played volleyball. And ironically that day, I watched Kobe walk out of the gym. There was only a couple dads left. It was late at night. He stayed and I stayed. And he had his youngest daughter in his arm and he was rubbing his other daughter's back. And I remember taking note of it because I was with Bella at the other end of the gym. And I remember thinking, I don't hug Bella enough. I need to hug. No joke, bro. It's in the book. I went, I got to hug Bella one more time every day. Not just once a day, plus one more time every day. My daughter's going to get extra hugs because Kobe does that. What if I could have said to Kobe when he got in his car, Kobe, you have one more week, brother. Tell those that you love them. Get it right. Whoever matters to you, make it right. Call your dad, make it right. Call your mom, call your family. What if the day before you could have said, Kobe, you have one day left. And my dad, same thing. I was with my dad when he had 1 day left. I was with my dad when he had 1 hour left. I was with my dad when he had 1 breath left. And when we begin to think of our life that way, the power of right now and having 1 more moment and 1 more minute is so beautiful. It's so blessed. It's so big. It's so amazing. Why would we spend that minute in history? Why would we spend that minute in the past when we could be fully present in creating the future? And so, I think most people think, Jay, everyone else is going to die. I think they just, I'm not going to die. Or they go, I'll get around to being happy. I'll get around to making my masterpiece of my life. I'll get around to my dreams. I'm going to get around to fixing this relationship that's broken. I'm going to get around to feeling those emotions. And then it's another day and another day. And they keep it in the distance until there are no more days. And I don't care if you're 18 years old listening to this, 28 or 48. We don't know if we have 1 more day or 100 more days or 1,000 more days. But we know this, there'll eventually be a time where we don't have any more days. And so why would we spend the ones that are coming looking at the past? And so my dad really taught me those lessons in watching him pass away. And that's why I have a whole thing in there of how to get 21 days a week, run mini days. I get 21 days a week. We still measure time, bro, like it's 1900. Think about 1900. Yeah. If I wanted to get you a note, I'd have to write a letter out, stick it on the back of a horse's butt in 1850. 30 days later, you get it. That was a 24-hour day. Now I can text you in 2 seconds. We measure time the same way. Yeah. So I teach you how to change your time so that you can make that day its maximum bliss, its maximum productivity.
What's one more that you're working on right now?
Right now, it's an interesting season of my life. I have a TV show that I did with NBC that's called Change that I think is, has a chance of getting picked up. But my one more that I'm working on right now for me and my life is my peace. And so there's this guy, Shetty, that's a friend of mine that introduced me and my family to meditation. And I'm giving myself the gift I don't just do it in the morning now. I've given myself the gift of 1 more time every single day of just emptying my mind and trying to be fully present. And it's been work for me. I've got that busy type of a mind, but I have found that my peace in my life, most of us, Jay, have all these goals of things we want to do, and they're wonderful. And I believe in doing that. I think standards are more important than goals because, and I teach you in this book, how to set the standards that'll get those goals. But we really don't want the jet. We don't want the hit song. We don't want the amazing relationship. We don't want the $1 million. We want how we think it'll make us feel. And what if we began to become more intentional and outcome oriented about the things we feel in our life? And it took me a while, but now that I'm older, when I feel strong, when I feel blissful, when I feel peaceful, is when I produce the physical things that I want, not the other way around. Oof. And so my 1 mores are more emotional focus. Most of us, then I'll come up for air here, have an emotional home. There's 3 or 4 or 5 emotions we experience on a regular basis. I write about it in the book. And no matter what happens, we find a way, even if they don't serve us, to get those emotions. If your emotional home is fear, anxiety, worry, depression, anger, you find a way every week to get that emotion. But what if that emotional home could become bliss and peace and joy and creativity and ecstasy? And so I'm working on 1 more beautiful emotion for my emotional home, and for me, it's peace.
I love that. I love that answer, man. It's good to hear about what you've been saying. Like, we're not living in the past, and you're like in the present. But to have you answer that question, that peace is your presence. Like, that's what you're looking for.
Right
like,
now.
that's the present. And it shows that you're using this, like it works. You're doing it time and time again. And I love what you said. It moves from the physical things into the subtle, into the emotional, into the deeper. I think that's so profound. What was that 1 more that if you didn't do it, you wouldn't be here today? What was one of those ones that like that was the one that convinced me, apart from obviously your father, that you were like, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be Ed Mylett today. I wouldn't be maxed out life.
The first business I built was a financial business, and I had some success, Jay, like a lot of people do in life. And then it went backwards. And sometimes when you get up the flagpole just a little bit and you come back down, that's an emotional difficulty. It could be a relationship that was good that's gone, or maybe you saved some money, it's gone. Maybe you lost a bunch of weight and got fit and you gained it back. For me, it was my business. And I called my dad. He was a pretty wise guy now that he was sober. And because I could tell you, man, I do one more rep in the gym. I haven't done 10 reps on a bench press in 30 years. I've done 10 plus one more a lot, though. I haven't done 45 minutes on a treadmill, but I've done 45 plus one more minute. 10 contacts a day? Never. 10 plus one more. But the biggest one more was actually something else. I called my dad and I said, hey, Dad, it's not going. The business is crashing. And I'm running out of money. Our power was turned off. Our water was turned off, Jay. I had to take my wife every morning. We'd lost our house. We're living in an apartment now. Then the water got turned off. You can't cook. You can't bathe. There was a apartment building. We had an outdoor shower at the swimming pool. And we were newlyweds. And I'd have to get up every morning, walk down there, and I'd hold a towel up while my wife took her shower every day outdoors and brushed her teeth. And then she'd switch and hold the towel up for me. And I'd walk back up to the apartment and I was so emasculated, so ashamed, so embarrassed. And I was living a nightmare, selling a dream to everybody every day. We can do this. A lot of entrepreneurs or people can relate in their life. And anyway, I called my dad that night and I said, I think I need to pack it in. I need to go get a job and this success thing is not for people like us. And my dad goes, Eddie, you don't have to decide you're never going to quit. He goes, just don't quit for one more day. See how you feel tomorrow. I go, Dad, he goes, just don't do it for one more day. And I got up the next day and I still wanted to quit, but not quite as much. And then I went one more day. And I found myself about 30 days later, I didn't want to quit anymore. And thank God the one more I did was I went one more day without quitting. And I'm so grateful I didn't quit on my dream.
Oh, Ed, wow, that is like, oh my gosh, man. Like, everything you're just dropping right now, I'm just like, I hope everyone is taking notes. If you haven't been taking notes, I want you to take a screenshot right now of where we're at right now, because that's what you're going to have to listen to again. So take a screenshot, share it, tell everyone to go to this segment, listen to that over again, because I think what I'm hearing, is that this is a lifestyle. Like, this is a mindset. It's a lifestyle. It's an everyday, every moment way to live. This isn't just in the big business you're building. This is me telling my wife I love her one more time. This is me making sure I message my mom one more time. It's me making sure that when I'm sitting here with you, I'm always going to have to ask you one more question because you keep giving so much. No, but you keep giving so. Well, that's what you just said. It will never end. Mm-hmm. I think if people feel like they tried a lot and then they start building up resentment and like pain and bitterness towards that path. And a lot of people also that I know, they just think that there are some people who are meant to be.
I agree with this.
And then there are some people that are not meant to be.
That's correct.
And they carry that with them. And it comes from this like, oh yeah, you were meant to be this, or that person was meant to have it. But for me, this is where, and I heard that kind of come up in what you were saying to your dad, like, it doesn't happen to people like us. How does this principle apply to someone who's in that
Brother,
space?
best question ever. Because I grew up with you have an alcoholic dad or a drug addict, or maybe you come from divorce, or maybe your parents just didn't love you enough, whatever it was, didn't tell you they loved you enough. It's hard to have self-confidence. Yeah. I was a little guy, I got bullied in school, and and even at this age now, bro, I if I'm being completely honest, self-confidence, we all teach that it's, part of keeping the promises you make to yourself. But what if you raise the standard a little higher? You keep the promises you make to yourself, plus one more. Because for me, self-confidence didn't come easy. I think in life, ultimately you're going to get what you believe you deserve. And if you're wired like me, I didn't think I deserved a lot. I didn't even have a dad who could stop drinking, right? I wasn't 6'4". I don't have an incredibly high IQ. There's nothing really that impressive about me, nor were people very impressed with me most of my life. So that was my pattern. That was my history. That was my memory. And so I could wait around until I developed tremendous self-confidence, or I could begin to do things every day that were small. They're not major. And over time, when I did those one more calls, that one more meeting, that one more book I read, that one more podcast, not only am I doing more reps, so the likelihood of me being successful is bigger, but I started to convince myself I'm doing things other people aren't willing to do. Maybe I deserve things other people aren't going to get. And slowly but surely, I started to convince myself I did deserve it based on what I was doing, not necessarily the caliber of my talent.
Yeah.
And that was the difference.
Yeah, you just, there's a thought I've been having recently, and it's that comfort creates self-care, but discomfort creates self-respect.
Ooh, boy, I love
right?
that.
Like, it's what you're
that.
saying.
I love
that.
that.
The one more discomfort every day,
Yes.
that's where self-respect comes from.
Yes.
You don't...
Great term.
You don't start to trust yourself or build self-esteem or believe in yourself because you just say it to yourself. Amen. It's coming, what you just said. You go out there and take one more meeting and see what you learn. Yes. You go out there and take one more risk, one more discomfort.
And I guarantee you, if you have a successful or happy friend, how you determine that, and you ask them this, they'd tell you that we're right.
Yeah.
They would tell you, gosh, that's right.
Yeah.
It's right. And the difference between winning and losing, happiness and sadness, is so small, it's almost scary to talk about. But the good news is I think I kind of know what it is, and it's this one more.
Absolutely. The people that I know that are the most successful and happy have more uncomfortable conversations.
Agreed.
They have more uncomfortable days. They have more discomfort in their lives.
Yes, totally agree with that.
But selected discomfort. But one of the other things that I'm asking from now, I'm like going into like the people that I know that I'm thinking about, I can see their faces and I want them to know that I'm asking for them. A lot of the time, one more in the wrong direction
That's right.
can also be really misguiding. Sometimes people, and I know you're a person of faith too, and so we can touch on this. Sometimes we're climbing the mountain and we keep doing one more, but we're actually going further away from who we are, who we want to be, our faith, our partners, right? We know people who've built multi-billion-dollar companies but lost their kids.
That's right.
Or they've become famous and rich, but their partner cheated on them, or like really painful stuff. And you know people who didn't do all of that, and that's happened too.
Sure.
Like it's both ways. How does one use one more and make sure it's in the right direction?
Such a great question. I'm doing this now regularly because I've made some of those mistakes of and what I do is I check in with myself one more time, meaning it's important to ask yourself, what matters to me now? See, if we had this conversation 20 years ago, the things that mattered to me then are so different than what matter to me now. But a lot of us keep operating out of what used to. Maybe you've achieved or are pursuing a dream, and it's really, truly no longer your dream. It's no longer your dream. It's when I was young, listen, if we were going to do a podcast, you say, hey, I need you on the show. People are going to love you. You're going to get recognition. You're going to get all this acknowledgement. And that would have been my hot button, my need. I believe in the 6 human needs. My need was significance and recognition. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's wonderful. And so that's the button to get me to move would be significance, recognition. Well, I've been blessed the last 30 years or so of my life to have a beautiful abundance of significance and recognition. It's no longer what fills me. Now you get me to do an interview, you go, hey, I really think we could help some people. My big button in my life now is contribution. There was another stage in my life, it's still there, but hey, if you go there, you'll grow. I still want to grow, but I know me now. Right now, I'm in a season of my life that's contribution. It's giving. It's what fills my heart. And I think it's checking in with yourself one more time. What matters to me now? What do I want now? What's important to me now? What season? Maybe you're in a season where you need to rest. Maybe your spirit and everything about you is telling you, hey, it's time to feed you again. It's time to recharge. If that's the season, then answer that call. Don't play out of a past playbook. And so for me, that's the season I'm in now. And I'm sure that in 5 or 8 more years, there'll be something else. But I regularly, on a monthly basis, you recommend it in your book so beautifully about your relationship, checking in. You have these strategies you teach about weekly and monthly and quarterly and yearly with your partner of checking in with them. I also recommend you check in with yourself and what matters to you now. And so for me, it's a matter of checking in now so that I don't lose my family in the pursuit of my business or lose me.
Yeah.
Lose me. Who am I anymore? And I've had times where I'm like, this doesn't feel like me anymore.
Yeah.
And I had at least the ability to at least acknowledge that and make a change.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up seasons because I feel like no one, and on planet Earth, we don't have the power to change the season.
Yeah.
But you have the power to live the season well.
That's right.
You can either be right now it's been raining, right, wherever we are. it's been like pouring down with rain. There's all this effort. You could carry an umbrella. Well, you can tell how I'm dressed.
Right.
I'm definitely not dressed in my usual gear.
Right.
Because I'm dressed for the rain. I'm prepared.
Yes.
Because that's all I can do. I can't make the rain switch off. I can't stop it, right? Like I can't do that.
Yeah.
And so I love hearing that you're just learning how to thrive in the season. And so if your season's telling you to rest, you can't force the season. And you have to live it through. You have to experience it.
You know, I think you have to remember one thing, man. I think it's just easy as a person to forget this. And I just would love to say this because you have such an amazing reach.
My team always sends some version. Luckily, that was the short one. There's like a 20-minute one I could show you too with like islands and jets and when I used to be jacked and big with my shirt off. You'd love that one. Super goofy. And so what I am not is some superstar person. And I think that's important. You know, when you see everybody up here on the stage, they're all dressed in really expensive clothes. They've all had a lot of success. I come up here with a hole in my shirt. I'm not all that expensive. But the point is, when we come up here, you could kind of start, because there's a hero-making machine that comes with building leaders, right? We make heroes of people. It's one of the best parts of your business. One of the downsides, though, is you could start thinking these people are different than you. And then if you can actually convince yourself they're different than you, then like you have an excuse not to win. So what if, at least in my case, I'm like a goofball and really average and ordinary? Would that give you a little bit of hope if you knew who I really was? Yes? Okay, here's who I really am. I'm really the son of a drug addict and an alcoholic. That's actually who I am. Who I really am, grew up very shy, very insecure, no self-confidence. Who I really am is I grew up in tremendous anxiety and dysfunction. And those things that are embedded in you as a child, you never really lose all of them. So even to this day, hundreds of millions of dollars, I got a global express, I've owned 6 jets, I own an island, I reach millions of people with my podcast, which by the way, some of you still are not listening to the best podcast in the world, right? Like I don't get it, but listen to my podcast, it will change your life. The Ed Mylett Show. But after all of that, who I really am is that's me. I'm the son of an alcoholic. And so, did any of you, by the way, grow up in any neglect or dysfunction in your upbringing? Just curious. Any of us? I got some brothers and sisters. Wow, the rest of you have like perfect families. You're totally full of shit. So, how many of you had any neglect? Right? So, like, it could be like divorce, bankruptcy. They didn't tell you they loved you enough, all the way up to abuse, drug addict, whatever it might be. I have a very good friend of mine. How many of you have kids? Cool. This is going to hit home. Really good friend of mine. I met my wife in kindergarten. And I'm still very good friends, we both are, with another girl from our kindergarten class. Her name's Jennifer. I won't tell you her last name. And when I've had a lot of cool things happen in my life. And then my book came out, The Power of One More. It's the #1 nonfiction book in the world this year. And she says to me, man, I'm so proud of you, Eddie. You grew up with all that neglect in your home, and you've just changed your life and changed the world and blah, blah, blah. And I said, Jen, I love you and thank you. But I said, I have to be honest with you because I do love you. I think you neglect your kids. She said, what are you talking about? Brian and I have been married together for 25 years. I don't drink. I love my kids. I said, yeah, that's all the basic stuff. I said, let me explain something to you. The most insidious form of child neglect in the world, is a child who's being raised by a parent who is not in pursuit of their dreams or their potential. That's the #1 form of child neglect in the world. And the reason is because with our children and most things in leadership, it's caught, not taught. It's caught, not taught. Your kids are catching from you that it's okay to settle. You can be anything you want, sweetheart. At some age, they grow up and go, well, why aren't you, mama? When you walk in a room someday, everybody's going to know your name. Well, what's up with you, Dad? You can be anything you want. You can be happy. You know what your kids really want for you? They want you to be happy. And they know whether you're not. You can fool them a little bit. They'll still love you, but at some point your kids figure out by the way, you figured out who your parents are, didn't you? They drive into school with you in the morning. They know whether you're happy. They know whether you're winning. They know whether you're going for it. They know whether you're stretching and growing. They know. And you're neglecting them if you don't go for it. The good news for you is you are very special and unique that you're a part of EXP, because what you're at least saying is, I don't want to be average and ordinary. I want to try to do something great with my life. And what we think in our life is that because we haven't succeeded before or we got something in our background,
I got a divorce. You don't know I cheated here. I lied there. I'm average. I've always been invisible. We begin to disqualify ourselves and say, that's why I won't win in the future. And nothing could be further from the truth. I'm going to prove that to you in a little bit. Now, let me give you a spoiler alert. My dad eventually got sober and spent about 35 years of his life sober, completely changed his life. So the reason I'm even in this space where I believe human beings can change their life is I watched my hero do it. But I'm going to teach you a couple things, okay? I'm going to say something to you. I'd already written my book. I'd already had, a lot of pretty good success. And I was laying in bed about 8 months ago, and I woke up crying. My wife's not ever seen that before. She's like, what's wrong? I said, babe, something just dawned on me. I can't even believe I've never thought about this before. I said, someone helped my dad. Someone helped Daddy. She's like, what do you mean? I said, someone helped my dad. When my dad was going to lose his family, my dad was actually going to take his life. And I don't even know where it happened. In some bar, alley somewhere, some precious human being stepped forward and said, I can help you. And that person, they didn't know it in that moment, but they were doing something great with their life. They helped my father get sober. And you would say to them, they don't know that when they helped my dad, that someday I was his son. And the ripple effect of helping that one human being has reached millions of people on all the continents on the planet. Now, why is that? Here's what's crazy, because you don't understand the power of helping one more person. You still don't get it. Listen to me. What qualified that person to help my dad? What were their qualifications? Do you know? Here's what's crazy. The very things that they would think disqualified them from ever doing anything great with their life. You know what qualified that person to help my dad? They were also a drug addict at one time. They were also a liar, living in the shadows, stealing, drinking, hanging out, cheating. The very things they thought would disqualify them from ever doing anything great qualified them in that moment to step forward and help my father, because in life you are most qualified to help the person or people you used to be. And that's the power of your recruiting model. That's the power of EXP if you get it. Put your phone down. Put your phone down. There's a guy worth $800 million talking. You are most qualified to help the person you used to be. That's the power of this model. If you used to be broke and you no longer are quite as broke, you can help broke people. If you used to not have confidence in yourself and you got a little now, you can give it to people who don't have it. You used to not have a dream or believe you could do something, and you do now, you can help people who need dreams. Listen to me. We need leaders with vision to help people with dreams. And you're that person. And you would think, not me, I'm shy, I'm broke, you don't know. Listen to me. That's the very thing that qualifies you. Let me tell you what you don't know about recruiting people here. This is the belief system. You ready? Everybody wants in. They just don't know it yet. If they felt what you feel in this room, if they knew about the recognition, the travel, the awards, the helping of one another, they'd want all of that. They just don't know it yet. So when they're smirking at you, you know that smirk when you're trying to recruit somebody. You know what I'm talking about. You smirk your ass right back at them. You let them know. In your gut, you know, you want in. You want everything. You want all the goodies we got here. You just don't know it yet. That's a fact. And you are one recruit away. You are one recruit away from completely changing your life. Trust me, I know. I've got about 10 of them in my whole life. And those 10 recruits separated me from being broke to being worth millions of dollars. You're looking for 7 to 10 key leaders in your business. Yeah, I know the model. Now that's going to lead to hundreds and thousands of other people, but you're really looking for 7 to 10 key players. You can't find 7 to 10 key players the next 10 years, something's wrong with you. So this is not a matter of whether you will win here. It's a matter of when, if you stay. Okay? So the power of helping one more person. Here's what's funny. Let me just prove to you one last time, Mr. 800 million, what a goober I am. So I'm in the business of recruiting and building people. And I'm struggling. In fact, I actually made a little bit of money for a while, but I ended up going broke. And so broke that I got married to my high school sweetheart, who was my kindergarten crush. And she literally grew up down the street from me. And I had all these dreams when we were kids. I'd walk around the beach and say, babe, we're going to get one of these beach houses someday. in high school. You know, I tell her all these dreams. She said, we are? I said, yeah, man, we're going to have this amazing life, and not going to be like your mom and dad and my mom and dad. Something awesome is going to happen with us. And then we got married, and reality set in. And about 6 months after us getting married, we had our power turned off because I was doing this. And you know, it can be some lean times when you're recruiting and selling on commission. And then her car got repoed. And then my car got repoed. And that was all bad, but then the power got turned off. Now, that's bad. Then the water got turned off. You don't want your water turned off, 'cause let me tell you what happens. You can't bathe. You can't cook. And so for about a month and a half, every morning I would get up with my new bride, and we lived in an apartment complex. You can picture an apartment, you know, they got that swimming pool, that one shower. There was an outdoor shower there, and we would get up every morning and grab our toothbrush and soap and shampoo, and I would walk down with this girl who I'd told we were going to live on the beach someday, and I would hold a towel up while she took a shower outside and brushed her teeth. And then we would switch. She'd hold the towel up, and I would. Our neighbors all knew what was going on, and I would walk up the stairs of our apartment completely ashamed. What I was doing was I was living a nightmare and going out every day selling the dream. Some of you really relate to what I'm talking about right now. How's everything going? I remember going, unbelievable. When I'd recruit, how are you doing? Like you literally wouldn't believe it. I wasn't lying. And then I made a little bit of money, and I told her, I said, here's why people aren't buying from me. Let me tell you what happened. I drove to LA, I'll never forget this. I ran out of money, and I had to get $20 to go to the ATM to get gas to get back home after this appointment I was gonna have. And I was praying literally, Lord, please let there be at least $22 in there, because if there's less than 20 in my account, it won't spit out any money because it only spits out 20s. And there was 17 bucks in there. So I couldn't get any money out of the bank. So before my appointment, this is a true story, just to give you a little bit of hope. Before my appointment, there's a McDonald's here and a Chevron here. And I spent 30 minutes at that Chevron begging for money for gas. No one would help me. I went over to the McDonald's, and I literally walked in the drive-through line with people in their cars, and I got a man to give me $10. And I told him, give me your contact information, sir, I'll send it back to you. And I did. I got in my car. Back then, I don't know anybody old in here enough to remember, but I drove a Honda CRX. Anybody remember Honda CRXs? Oh, we got some people in here. Let's go some old people. Cool. So I rolled up. My Honda CRX was a hoopty, so what I would do on all my appointments is I would park a block away and then walk to their house so they wouldn't see that I was broke, how unbelievable I was doing. And so I parked my car a block away. I went in, I gave my presentation, blah, 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 blah. When I was done, they go, this was great, let us think about it, which was code for, no, please get out of our house. So I get out of the house, and I'm walking down the block, and I got to turn to the right side to go where my car is on the other block, and I see the glass on the sidewalk. Back in those days, everybody was stealing car stereos. If you had like a Alpine or a, what was the other one? Kenwood. Now I know there's some old people in here. Alpine or Kenwoods, they jack your car stereo back in the day. But I remember walking, I had like 100 yards to go. I'm like, well, this is weird. I got a Sanyo. Nobody wants my Sanyo. And I get up there, and they didn't take my stereo. You know what they took? My passenger seat. They stole my passenger seat. You have to be really down on your luck to have your water turned off and someone pursues your passenger seat out of your car. You got to be a very specific criminal to be in the market. I'm on the hunt tonight for a passenger seat of a Honda CRX. And my dumbass with no water, just begged for money at the gas station, rolled up with exactly what they were looking for. The next 4 months on recruiting training appointments, literally, if you were my recruit, you rolled in my Honda and you sat on a rock I grabbed out of the landscaping of my apartment complex. That was your seat. And I would literally say to you, hey man, fasten your seatbelt. That's the truth. I haven't told that in a long time. And then I made like $6,000. I saved $6,000. I said, babe, the reason I'm failing, no one thinks I'm successful. I need a Mercedes. If I was broing in a Mercedes, you know, some of you believe this BS too. Man, once I start making money, then I'll recruit. That ain't how it works. You got to recruit to make money. So I'm like, all right. So I went and looked in the penny saver. I clicked, guys, back there. I don't know if y'all can feel my clicker, but I'm clicking up here. Here we go. I'm clicking, but it ain't clicking with me. I don't think your clicker works, everybody. In fact, I now definitively know it doesn't. So if you got another clicker, bring it to me. Anyway, so I look in the penny saver, and all the Mercedes like 60 grand, 60 grand, 60 grand, 60 grand. I find this one that's 6,500 bucks. It says Mercedes-Benz SL, kinda. True story. In parentheses. I'm like, that might be my speed. Read a little bit longer. It's a Mercedes. It's not a Mercedes. It's actually a Chrysler LeBaron kit car with a Mercedes-Benz body. Anybody even know what a kit car is? You're a well-adjusted human being if you don't know. I do know. And what a kit car is ain't a real one. This is a Chrysler LeBaron, and they weld the body of a Mercedes onto it, so you got a fake Mercedes. That's what this was. But beggars can't be choosers, so I decide, by the way, this sucker had a stereo, top-of-the-line Jensen 7-inch motorized touchscreen on the head unit there, MB quart for the front speakers, got infinities in the rear. So I drive down to this lady's place. She's got this car there. I'm pretty sure there was some methamphetamine, thank you, involved in her universe at the time based on what was going on there. And I said, tell me about the car. She goes, look, I'm just going to shoot straight with you. You can fool about 50% of the people. I said, why? She goes, well, it's 2 feet longer than a real Mercedes, so people that really know the cars are going to laugh their ass off at you. And she goes, and when I say laugh, I mean like almost fall out of their own car laugh, pointing at you. The other little glitch is the real one doesn't have a back seat. This has a back seat. Oh, also the heater blows full time when it's August, so that's going to be an issue for you too. I go, anything else? She goes, nah, that's probably about it. She goes, by the way, you seem very persuasive. You might be able to persuade 70% of the people. I said, all right, I'll take it. I'll give you 5. She goes, give me 6. I got 5,500. She goes, deal. Oh, she says, this is the power of one more. She goes, oh, by the way, one more thing. I go, what? What else could there be? She goes, well, you know how like a regular kit car? I go, no, I don't know what a regular kit car is. She goes, well, a regular kit car, like the body's welded on to the LeBaron. This one's not welded on there. I said, well, how's it on there? She goes, Velcro. I go, what did you take your hand? I literally said to her this. So I said, ma'am, please remove your hand from your methamphetamine-infested grill right now. Okay? What did you say? She said, it's Velcroed on there. I said, wait a minute. So what you're telling me is I have purchased a fake Mercedes Velcroed together with the heater blowing vehicle from you. She says, yes, honey, you have. And she goes, oh, by the way, one other thing. When you pull up to a stoplight, don't give yourself enough leeway where you don't brake fast. Because if you brake fast, the front left headlight, the Velcro, so it'll fly out into the intersection. True story. Hey, Forbes magazine named me the most fastest growing man in the history of social media 3 years ago. Let me just tell you something. If there were cell phones and social media back in the day, I would have been 3 billion times more viral. Because let me tell you why. Number one, I was driving a Velcroed fake Mercedes. But better than that, more than 100 times in Mr. 800 Million's life over here, I have rolled up to the intersection too quickly. Whoop! Headlight out into the intersection. More than 100 times, just to give you hope, I have run out into an intersection and stopped 4-way traffic. In my Men's Warehouse suit and my JCPenney shoes, and I have picked up my own. Imagine you pull up to a light just minding your own business, and you watch this headlight fly out into the intersection. And then some dude gets out of his car, runs into the intersection, stops the traffic, picks up his own freaking headlight with Velcro on it, runs back to his car, sticks it on there, and then jumps back in his car again. You imagine how viral I would be? By the way, about 25 or 30 of those times, I shut the door too hard and it fell off. And then I'd have to get out of my car and Velcro it back onto my car. True story. So, what's my point? By the way, just for fun, this is for fun. Which one's my car? Is my car the silver one? Say aye. Or is my car the blue one? Say aye. Blue's mine, huh? Wrong. How do you know? Look at the front left headlight. See the gap for the Velcro? You can look at it right now. Bam, that's my car. I drove that car for 5 years. The third year I drove it, I made $770,000. Oh. The fourth year it got stolen, and the criminal went 5 houses down from me, figured out what it was, got out of the car, left the keys in it, and rolled on. In the fifth year, I sold that car to a dude on my team for $7,000. His name's Rob Day. It's a true damn story. And he's worth about $100 million now himself. How about that? So, why do I tell you all that? I ain't no superstar. Hope I gave you some hope. You got a little hope right now? Say yes. So, what the heck did I do? Let's talk about it for a minute. First things first is I made one decision. I don't want to live life on a merry-go-round. Most of the people that are giving you crap about doing this, that don't get why you're doing it, they chose to live their whole life on a merry-go-round. Just see the same stuff, slowly but surely, every day of their damn life. Same people, same places, same things, same thoughts, same everything. You've decided by doing this, you don't want to live your life on a merry-go-round. Let me tell you what you're going for. Excuse me, go back. You're going for this. You're going for, hopefully this will go. Let's see if you can play that. Nope, it doesn't. You're going for, it should, play that, guys. Click play. There we go. You've decided, just so you know, you're living on the roller coaster. It's going to go up, woo, and then you get to the butterflies coming back, up and down, fast. And when you watch someone get off a merry-go-round, like, yeah, that was great, let's do it again. Watch someone get off a roller coaster, yeah, baby! That's the life you've chosen. But it's going to go like this. I'm 52 years old. I'm still on the roller coaster. 9 weeks ago, I had a heart attack backstage before I spoke. 9 weeks ago. Unexpected things are going to happen to you in your life, right? But guess what? I'm here today. I've lost 30 pounds. I got to lose a little bit of muscle, but I've done it. Here's what I've developed in my life. Let me tell you what I've developed in my life that's worked for me. I've got 2 skills that I've made the money with and the influence. I want you to hear this. Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich that if you can survive the temporary, on the other side of temporary pain, you meet another version of yourself. If you can survive temporary pain, on the other side of temporary pain, you get to meet another version of yourself. It's a pretty powerful thing. I only have 2 talents. I'm not particularly smart. I'm not. I'm well read, but I'm not particularly bright. I don't think I'm wired with a whole lot of self-confidence, maybe even to this day. Yet I coach some of the top human beings in sports, entertainment, politics. I'm one of them. How'd that happen? I got 2 talents. Want to know what they are and how I got them? You curious? Let me tell you how I got them first. Let me tell you what they are. I love people. And I'm really present with human beings when I'm with them. And they feel something. I read them well. That's why I'm telling you, that's why my podcast is different. You can see someone get interviewed on one show and on mine, it's totally different. Matthew McConaughey said, hey man, I've been interviewed 3,000 times in my life. This is the best interview of my life. Just happened. I have a presence with people and a love for humans, and I read them real well. There's an energy you'd feel if you were with me. You'd probably feel like you're the most important person in the world, because I think you are. I want to remind you something about you, just so you know. No one's told you in a while. You were born to do something great with your life. Like, just listen to me. You were born to do something great with your life. And you may not know it when you're doing it, just like that guy that helped my dad get sober. He didn't know it at the time, but he was. I'm good with people. Second thing, I'm a good communicator. Those are my 2 skills. That's it. That's it. Let me tell you what they come from. Did I mention I was the son of an alcoholic and a drug addict? Comes from that. I have a mom and 3 sisters, and when my dad would go on these drinking binges, he would say, hey, when I'm 5, you're the man of the house, boy. You take care of your mom, your sisters when I'm gone. I would literally sleep on the inside of our house, blocking the front door so the bad guys couldn't get in. The Bible talks about the sins of the father. When my son Max was born, he grew up in a loving, beautiful home with an unbelievable mom and a decent dad in me. And when he was 3 years old, I found him sleeping in front of our front door. It's caught, not taught. It's in your DNA, it's in your legacy. Whether you're happy, whether you win, whether you're prosperous. So when my dad would come back, I would have to read my dad when he would come through the front door. I had to read his physiology, his language, his tie-tied. I didn't know whether he was drunk. Because if he was drunk, I would say, Mama, go upstairs and take a bath and take Mimi and Andrea and Erica with you. And I would be left downstairs with this man. I will never talk about what would happen when I was left down there with him. Never will. But I would have to read him. So I became unbelievably present with people in that moment. Little did I know God was giving me the gift of that terror and anxiety and worry that he was developing in this little boy, the greatest gift he would use in his life to reach millions of other human beings. On the other side of that temporary pain, as a grown man, I would use that skill to change lives and to make lots of money. The second thing that would happen is if my dad was drinking, Mama would go upstairs. And if he was sober, we would just have dinner. But most of the time, if he was drinking, I would have to then talk to him and change his state and his physiology. I say, Daddy, he goes, yeah. My whole goal was for him not to get to the liquor cabinet. Because if he went to the liquor cabinet, even though he was already drunk, my dad would have 8 Beefeater gins back to back. Well, I thought every dad did that. In fact, in baseball, I wore number 8 my entire career because of that. I was familiar with 8. I see 8s everywhere because of that. So if he was, I had to try to get him away from there. And so I would tell him, hey, Daddy, yeah, how was your day? That's all right. I'd say, well, I hit a home run in baseball, and I hit a triple to left center, and I got a 93 on my spelling test. You did? Yeah. Where'd you hit the triple? I was left center, and I slid in head first. Jimmy's tag was late. It was? That's awesome. So did you have any good meetings, Daddy? And I would get him over to the couch. He goes, well, one of them was... And if I could get him there for an hour or so, he'd sober up, and nothing bad would happen. And I could have Mama and my sisters come back downstairs. Those 2 skills, that surviving that temporary pain. See, all pain is temporary. Everything in our life is temporary, with the exception of our souls. Even our bodies are temporary. I was with my father when he passed away. I was holding him in my arms 2 years ago. And I watched my dad leave, even though his body was still there. So all pain's temporary. If you can survive it, and you can know that, on the other side of every pain you go through, you will develop new versions of you. This market's not real good, is it? Some of you will quit because of it. Some of you won't recruit. Some of you will make excuses. Some of you will go, nope, I'm gaining market share right now. I'm going to cash all the checks in 2 years when things turn around. Because on the other side of this temporary pain, you'll meet something.
Let's talk about transformation. So you recently lost your father. I did as well. I think we lost our dads around the same time.
I'm very sorry. Sorry about
That's okay. It's okay. So he actually lived sort of 2 lives. Like I researched, your life, and when I think you were 15 years old, he got sober, right? And he basically transformed into this whole other person. And I'm sure that had a lot to do with your personal transformation as well, and your ability to believe that people can change, right? So can you talk to us about that?
You nailed it. So my belief that human beings can change is not a belief, it's a knowing. And it's a knowing because I watched my hero do it. First 15 years of my life, my dad got sober 7 days before my 15th birthday. Mm-hmm. And I told you it was 420. And it was 9 days after his birthday. The rest of my life, my dad never celebrated his actual birthday, only celebrated his sobriety birthday. And wow. I believe human beings can change and know they can because I watched my hero do it. First 15 years, my dad didn't live right. Mm-hmm. Did not live well at all. Last 35, extraordinary. Best life I've ever watched be lived. And so I know people can change. And it made a huge impact on me that when my dad got sober. But there's the one mores, like out of the book, those lessons started with his sobriety. We're driving. Never seen my dad cry before. We're driving to a baseball game of mine, and he's crying when he's driving. I'm like, oh no, what's going on? And finally he pulls over and he goes, hey, I'm going to go try to get sober one more time. Because he had tried many times. And he said, I'm going to give it one more try. There's a chapter in the book called One More Try. I said, Dad, what would be any different this time? And he said, I'm going to lose everything. Your mom's taking you and the girls. So I'm going to lose my family. And you know what? You deserve a dad you can be proud of. Your mom deserves a husband she could respect. And then he got sober. I said, Daddy, are you going to stay sober forever? You're never going to drink again? He goes, I don't know. I'm just not going to drink for one more day. And there's been so many times in our life. So we think everything we have to decide is permanent. The truth is very few things are permanent. We both lost our fathers. Like their bodies weren't permanent, it turns out, right? They were temporary. And most things are temporary. So in business, many times I was going to quit
Because this idea, never quit, that's a hard thing to make. But a lot of times I went, you know what? Okay, I just won't quit for one more day. See how I do tomorrow. And then the next day, I just won't quit for one more day. And those one more started to really stack up. If I could tell you something that's new, that is just a new breakthrough for me, it's a long answer, so I apologize, but I wanted to share it with you because I already love you because of the way you prepare. So I'll share something extra with you. I wrote this whole book about all these lessons. It's a very heavy book, you know, like there's a lot of detailed stuff on your brain and confidence and identity and time management and leadership and equanimity, and it's heavy. This is not like another book. Like, you know, most books are just another book. It's the same book.
I agree. I read a book, I read 2 books a week because of this job. Yeah. And I felt like it was new stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, like I love Think and Grow Rich, but about every book I read is like the same derivative of it, like in someone else's words. And I'm like, I already read this book. I already read it. I stopped reading it, right? Yeah. So this isn't that. But I woke up about 2 weeks ago. It's been 3 weeks now. And I woke my wife up and I said, babe, and I was pretty emotional. I said, babe, I want everyone to hear this. You can just remember this the rest of your life. It's not even in my book. I said, babe, someone helped my dad. And it never occurred to me before. She says, what? She's waking up. I said, someone helped my dad. The most important decision of my entire life is my dad getting sober. It's why I'm talking to millions of people, our kids, our grandkids, millions of people I've reached. Some precious soul helped my daddy in the darkest moment, most shameful down moment of his life. Some human being rose up in their humanity to that moment and saved our family. And I don't know who they are. And it never occurred to me before. And I said, babe, it goes a level deeper. What qualified this person to help my dad? The thing they were the most ashamed of and embarrassed by, they were also an alcoholic and a drug addict at one point. So the things they were the most ashamed of, most embarrassed by, that they think disqualified them the most from winning, because most people listen to your show, they're like, yeah, but I'm young and you don't know about me, but like I've done this stuff I'm embarrassed by. I never did this well. I broke up with my boyfriend or girlfriend, or my first business failed. Not me, I'm disqualified. The very things you're most embarrassed about, ashamed of, or think are average about you are the things that are qualifying you to change people's lives. This person, imagine when they were drinking, driving drunk, making the biggest mistakes of life. Little did they know they were preparing for that moment to change my dad's life and mine, and then millions of other people by extension, the ripple effect. When they were doing drugs and stealing money and lying, they were preparing. It's your humanity, it's your frailties, it's your weaknesses. It's the things you're most vulnerable about when you share with other people and then show them how to do something better that changes people's lives. When you link your weakness, like I start out, I'm dumb. I'm not the dumbest guy in the world, but I'm not the smartest guy in the world. People go, I can't believe you say that about yourself. It's what helps me connect with you. If I had a 250 IQ, you'd be like, well, this dude's amazing. Of course he did it. No, I got a 760 on my SATs. I'm a C+ student. I was not, I didn't run a 4.40. Like, I'm just an average guy. And you know what? That's what prepares me to help you. And so that person's drug and alcohol addiction is what prepared them to change millions of people's lives. So never disqualify yourself.
Wow, that was powerful. I had chills while you were telling that story. I love that.